Hello and welcome to this week's commentary video here on this Pokey YouTube channel of mine. At the time of this recording, I would be celebrating my 40th birthday here on December 23rd. And granted, this video goes live on the Monday, December 26th. So it's like I like recording these things in advance just to have, something unique for you. Get into the habit of doing stuff instead of waiting till the last minute. Anyway, but first, as many of you do know, there's my mom is battling cancer, and I do want to thank y'all for either sharing the GoFundMe link or donating to it to her GoFundMe to help cover her medical expenses and so forth. Your generosity and kindness has been a blessing, as it says, the more ways than one. So I thank you very very much. Now on to that link, and before we get into this week's subject, that link of course is in the description below. So if you want to find out more or donate a little to it, again, we would greatly appreciate it. She would greatly appreciate it because it definitely shows the kindness that y'all have. Now, we're going to be a little bit more positive for the rest of this video because we're going to test my memory for cartoons of the 1980s. As I said at the time of this, I'm recording this. I will be celebrating my 40th birthday, and so it's meaning I was born in 1982, which means I grew up with a lot of shows in the 1980s. Granted, I would remember more shows from like 86 onward, very for sure, because I know one particular show started airing in 1986. But a lot of stuff was airing on reruns in syndication. There was also stuff like the USA Network Cartoon Express, as well as Nickelodeon. Cartoon Network didn't exist until the mid 90s. So in terms of cartoons and things of that nature, there was like you had your weekday morning cartoons, your afternoon cartoons, and your Saturday and Sunday Monday sets in most cases. And if you had cable, you had Nickelodeon and when the USA Network had its cartoon blocks. So anyway, so we're gonna go to what I normally consider to be the game screen, and we've got a tier list here over on tiermaker.com. We're going to break it down as S, A, B, C, D tiers in terms of rating the shows. And then we have two other categories. Heard of but did not see, meaning I'm aware of a show's existence, but I did not personally watch it. And then we have a tier for stuff that I never heard of, because looking at this list, there's plenty of shows that I recognize right off the bat. And there's stuff that definitely does not stand, that I don't recognize just based on the images here. So we're going to start off here. Maxie's World, never even heard of it. No questions there. Care Bears. I do remember Care Bears quite a bit, actually. And I'm actually going to put it B tier for a couple of things here, because I do remember very specific aspects of that show that I remember standing out. The character of Grumpy Bear, who without question was the star of the show, and this basically being dragged into he was almost seemed like he was totally involved in everything. Like I don't remember many of the episodes and there were like two shorts that was typically airing where he was not involved in some way. And when they got into the Star Trek parody era of Care Bears, where like Braveheart Lion was the captain, Grumpy was there, I believe, as either like the chief engineer or science officer, one or the other. So it's like, yeah, he was always involved, and Sure, the plots and things were all the same, but it was animated fairly well. I think a lot of folks, quite younger than me, will recognize more the nostalgia critics uh, review, and I use that term rather loosely, of the two Care Bear films and the Nutcracker special more than anything else. But the show itself was hot, fine. It was harmless. It's like it's there. It was memorable enough for me to remember specific details about it, and so it's like right there, B tier. The real Ghostbusters, no question, that goes S tier. I still have the my Stay Puft Marshmallow Man plush toy from the that I got for my birthday slash Christmas that same year of 1986. So I still have it. It doesn't have the hat. It's the eyes are faded. The little sailor bandana thing is tattered, but I still have it. The cartoon itself, I know, definitely remember airing in syndication. It airing on ABC Saturday mornings. My most distinctive memory of that show is watching the 1989 Halloween special with my mom. We were living out in oh, we were living out in what will be considered the country, the boondocks, as it were, or at least how we would call it here at the time. So we taped that on a VHS tape the same night as the Garfield Halloween special, because the Ghostbuster one was airing on ABC, the Garfield one was airing on CBS. So that was very distinctive as well. Matter of fact, in 1989, the Real Ghostbusters was airing also. In addition to airing on ABC, it was also airing in syndication still on WPHL Channel 17 here in the Philadelphia area. Silverhawks. Here's the thing. I remember seeing it, but it really didn't leave an impression on me. Obviously, the intro, Silverhawks, stands out, but it is probably is getting a C tier just based on the intro being incredible, but beyond that, I couldn't tell you a fucking thing about that show. Excuse me. Tag Academy, I never even heard of. I don't even know what this is here. Gem and the Holograms, A tier. From what I remember, again, I could be misremembering, but I do remember Gem and the Holograms airing back to back with G.I. Joe. Like, I think it was G.I. Joe first and then Gem and the Holograms. And what stands out to me from Gem is, like, I remember it having, like, it being, the music being quite good. Granted, 80s as hell. But it was one of two shows that had a distinctive female lead. And the other one was She-Ra. So again, and it just stands out in my mind. So it automatically goes to A tier. And the because Hasbro was actually because much like with GI, actually more so than GI Joe, because Gemini Holograms had some decent animation because they had the transformation effects and stuff. Like a transformation sequence, the music kind of makes it. I just remember it being visually cool. Man, it's like and if I had a brain, I would just go onto YouTube and pull up what you call it, a clips of stuff here. But then again, we're going off of just my memory. Centurions, heard of but did not watch. Full Floor, never even heard of. RoboCop. You want to talk about something that was just bad? RoboCop the animated series. I remember it airing on, I want to say, WPSG Channel 57, which is currently the CW affiliate here. It was UPN in the 90s and early 2000s. The RoboCop animated series is like there was the potential of being able to do a RoboCop series in animated form, but the way they did the animated series was a bit too cheesebally for it. It looked good, but I just remember just not liking the show at all. I mean, that's a big difference between the C and D tier. There's, like with Silverhawks, like okay, I remember certain aspects of it and left no impression on me, so that's C tier. D tier is like okay, I just didn't like it, and RoboCop falls into that category. The action figures were cool though. Punky Brewster, the animated series, I did not see heard of it, did not watch it. It's Galtar. Never even heard of that. Garfield and Friends, this goes S tier. This was airing on CBS Saturday mornings following Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So you had like an hour of Ninja Turtles, particularly in the early 90s, of 2 episodes of that. Then you had Garfield and Friends. Because Ninja Turtles was like at 10 to 11 a.m. and Garfield was at 11. So there's that strong like okay yeah definitely remember a specific order and sequence of things. I like most people I did not care for the U.S. Acres segments, but it's like as time goes by and I think back, it's like start thinking like the U.S. Acres segments were literally the meat of the show because you had Garfield at was the bookend, the beginning and end. U.S. Acres was like right in the middle, and it was like Roy the Rooster's antics, and remember it was a literal Sheldon, the chicken that wouldn't hatch. Is like the egg hatches, and it turns out there's another. It's just another eggshell. Um, Orson just being kind of like capitalist, trying to keep everything together, and when his brothers come up to town, it's always kind of cool there. I have no fucking clue what in the world this is supposed to be. And same with this one. Heathcliff. This goes B tier for me, kind of like with Care Bears. Heathcliff, I want to say was airing. I don't remember what network it was airing on in terms of Saturday morning cartoons, but I do remember seeing it on Nickelodeon more than anything else. What stands out to me? Why would I put it as a B tier? The intro music alone. So, I can remember the melody. You had this distinct visual of the with those three cool cats, the ones that lived in the junkyard of their vehicle, like their was it their trailer or something other that something had like a bit of a transformer effect into a car, like a convertible, like a 1950s, early 60s, like convertible, like topless, like almost like a Ford Fairlane type of car. Uh, Probably not quite a Ford Fairlane. It was more like a no. It was no. What they called the Cadillac Cats? I'm thinking of something else there, but it was a Cadillac. Now that I think about it, or at least trying to remember it. But anyway, Heathcliff, solid. I remember definitely enjoying it. But boy, I kind of wish I remember more about the junkyard cats and that car there, more than anything else. If I could remember more details, I probably will bump it up to A tier. Muppet Babies, S tier. For those of us who, again, I was born in '82, so I will not have seen anything related to the Muppet films or the Muppet Show. Because but Muppet Babies, that was definitely airing. Remember seeing it on Saturday mornings and definitely on Nickelodeon, to like the later '80s, early '90s. but the distinct personalities of introducing the Muppets to kids who would be watching cartoons and not seeing the Muppet Show or going out of the way or being plopped down in front of Sesame Street, because only Kermit was on Sesame Street. Uh, but the all the characteristics of the individual Muppets in terms of Kermit, Miss Piggy, Gonzo, Rolf, Fozzie, uh, Scooter. Uh, who else was? I think that was the predominant cast because you had Skeeter, who was Scooter's cousin or sister, twin, who was an original character for the show. I remember Nanny. Just all you saw from her were her legs. And remember the all the pop culture references with like the open house one closet door, like the boulder from Raiders of the Lost Ark charging towards it. Was it the Ghostbusters send up when I think it was Scooter's computer gets a literal bug in it, and the Muppet Babies just like think literally imagine themselves going into the computer to be bug busters in the form of Ghostbusters. So again, like real fond memories of it and everything. Beetlejuice. I would love to put this S tier, but it's clearly it's going A tier. How intro was awesome. It was for me the introduction to Beetlejuice because I would have been seeing the show first before seeing the movie. So it kind of like was a whiplash effect, realizing that Beetlejuice was not a quote unquote good guy of sorts. I remember loving the design of Lydia, because she was rather thin, but she had that red, like spider like dress attire. Not quite a dress, almost like a poncho. It was like it just made her look real cool. The it was also what stands out about Beetlejuice. It was like I think what the first show that I can say used any real type of like computer graphics in terms of some of the intro and some of the in-show antics. Is like when Beetlejuice was like watched a TV. The show was like it was something or other, like it was like commercials for products and stuff that was quite relevant to the individual plots. So there was that. Mask. Here's a case where I remember seeing it, but it left no impression on me. So that's C tier. Thundercats. Uh, hmm, I put it A tier because that was how much of I remember and how much it actually standing up. Obviously, the intro looks is distinctive as all hell with it, but it's the cast of characters and the fact that this show had so much world building. If you watch the original Thundercats from beginning to end, and then you realize how much world building they were actually doing in that show, it was episodic in terms of there was very little carryover from episode to episode in the first in its initial months and so forth. But as the series went along, there were a number of things that were reoccurring because you go from the first plot where Thundera's destroyed the Lionel and his crew, because Lionel is the same age physically as like Wily Kit and Wily Cat. They're escaping. They go to Third Earth. The mutants, I think, were following them. They end up at Third Earth. You got the introduction of Mumra. Then you have everything else that gets put into place as that series goes along. You have like the the Burbles are introduced. You had the what was it? What do they call them? Lunatics or something or the other. They were kind of like more moon-based villains. You had like the more human village. You had that space cop patrol lady. and so forth. Then you had what, New Thundera, or even before New Thundera, you had like the introduction of, was it Bengal? Was that one of those three refugees cats called Bengali? They kind of like had like their own little base, but then you have like the personalities and what stands out with the Thundercats, like the Core Cats himself. I did not care for Lion-O at all, but as a matter of fact, I like Snarf a lot more than I like Lion-O, which is how many people will say that. Kitara obviously stands out. Panthro was kind of always cool. Tiger was not banned, bland. Wiley Cat could like take him or leave him. So it's like there's a lot of things that just stand out there. Fender's the Verse, never even heard of. I'm not even going to pretend I know what that is. Paddington Bear, heard of, but did not seize. Legend of Zelda. And I'm going to assume this is the 1988, 1999 show that was more of like the animated feature on the Super Mario Brothers Super Show that was airing on Friday, and it aired in the Fridays block time slot. And I'm gonna put it B tier. Most people would not will put it D tier, but I actually like it. I do remember quite a bit about it because there was always that hype. If you were watching the Super Mario Brothers Super Show, there was always a bit of hype, like hype as it relates to that week's episode of Legend of Zelda, because the Mario Brothers Super Show was airing Monday to Fridays. Zelda was the Friday cartoon, while the Mario Brothers had the Monday to Thursday cartoons. Like it kind of in and of itself. But what stands out? Well, you have Link, and basically the definitive version of Link's personality. That sarcastic, well, excuse me, princess. Yeah, you call that meme worthy now and gift worthy now, but guess what? Back then, it was like a great comeback line, particularly on the schoolyard. It was, despite Princess Zelda was not quite was almost equal to Link in many regards. There was that one episode where Link is kind of ghostified, where only Zelda could see him. And where she has to step up and to literally do all the action. She was not quite capable. She certainly showed that, okay, given time and training, she could be as good as Link in many regards. It was just I just remember enjoying it a lot. So it falls there. Ewoks. Heard of it, but I don't. From to the best of my recollection, never even seen it. Like I recognize it, but I don't think I've actually sat down and seen it in an episode. The Littles, heard of, never seen. Rainbow Bright, C tier. I remember seeing it. I definitely remember it being more of a syndicated show, but it left no impression on me, at least at this point in time. But I definitely remember it. Alf. The Alpha animated series I remember as being fucking awful. More so than RoboCop. It's like Alf belongs in its own tier, in that it didn't have any of the charm of the sitcom, and I think it was because it was taking place on Mermac, Alf's home planet. So you kind of like that fish out of water alien hiding aspect of the sitcom was did not translate well to the animated series, because in the sitcom Alf would kind of talk big, but the animated series it kind of came across a little bit, well, just badly written. Dink, the little dinosaur, heard of, but did not see. The Charlie Brown and Snoopy show. uh, C tier. Well, most people what I would associate more with Charlie Brown is the individual specials, like the Thanksgiving special, the Halloween special, the Christmas special, some of uh the various TV specials more than anything else, more than the actual shows, like Snoopy Come Home and things of that nature. I have the hell is this? I have no idea what in the world that will be. Popples. Popples was it's a show that was designed to sell toys but didn't really went to sell them. Didn't really do a thing that just stood out to me. It's like I remember the commercial more than the show. Because the commercial was like Popples, they were like almost like little. If again, my memory is again, I'm trying to remember stuff from 30 plus years ago at this point, were like little bottle things that is, you pop them and they turn into a little stuffed toy. So that's what I remember a Popple being. I might be confusing it with something else, but the show I don't remember being particularly good. It was like it was like a knockoff of Pound Puppies, which I think is on this list somewhere. Yes, it is. So we'll get to that. Captain N, the Game Master. I'm gonna put it as B tier because again, I remember enjoying it. It was my introduction to a lot of Nintendo characters because I did not have an NES. My cousin did, and so Captain N was my introduction to Castlevania in terms of Simon Belmont. It was my introduction to elements from Metroid in terms of Mother Brain. It was my introduction to Mega Man. Granted, all these introductions were clearly not accurate, but they were. It was my introduction to what give me an idea of what was involved with those games. The most distinctive episode I remember about it was the crossover with The Legend of Zelda. Matter of fact, I think both shows had the same cast of voice actors. I'll have to look into that. She-Ra, Princess Power. That's also B tier. I'm just come out and say it and come right out and say it. She-Ra is the better version of He-Man. Yes, clearly designed to sell toys and action figures, but you know what? The show was good. I think her name was Aurora. Oh, came across as a lot more active, or at least involved, than Prince Adam was in He-Man. She would just had like just a better design. So I was like, "There's that." What was this? Speed Rider, I never even heard of. Alvin and the Chipmunks, and I'm going to assuming this is not just as a Chipmunk Christmas, but it's talking more about the series in and of itself. The music is what makes it. Visually, it looks good, but the music was was great. It was like my introduction to George Thorogood was in an episode of Alvin and the Chipmunks because they did a riff on "Bad to the Bone" in it, and so you had that aspect there. Some of the plots were generic for what they needed to be because you had like a lot of the slice of life at home stuff, maybe while some episodes involved in being out on the road doing concerts and things. But yeah, definitely A tier for me. Robotech. Putting it up here, but and it's remember seeing it, remember being impressed by it, but it's been a long time since I actually ever sat down and watched it. I just remember being like one of the best damn looking shows that I ever saw as a kid. The plot I think went over my head quite a bit, but I just remember it just being like bam right there. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, that also goes up here. As I said earlier, it was I did my history with the Ninja Turtles is kind of funny because I remember watching what was it called, like the first 5 episodes was basically a glorified pilot, aired in syndication. It was aired on WPSG Channel 57 in the Philadelphia area. It while the majority of the show was airing in syndication, it also had the Saturday morning time slot, again 10 to 11 on CBS as a lead into Garfield and Friends. Matter of fact, this image here, I believe, is more for the box art for a particular box set of VHS tapes that came out in the like 90, I want to say 91, 92. But anyway, one episode that definitely stands out to me to this day is the one where Leonardo releases Tempestra from an arcade machine. So that just sticks out to me in a big regard there. Dino Saucers, never even heard of. Wheeled Warriors, never even heard of. Raggedy Ann and Andy, oh, heard of, seen, hated it. D tier. It is when you compare. See, I can forgive Charlie Brown and Snoopy for being like, okay, looking the way it looked because it was based on they were anything new that was created animatedly for related to Charlie Brown was based on what came beforehand. Raggedy Ann and Andy didn't have no. It should have looked so much better. And you know what's funny is like the whole concept, I believe, of Raggedy Ann and Andy and everything associated with it was essentially lifted and became Toy Story. That's Teddy Ruxpin. God, that show sucked. I'm not even. The doll was creepy enough. The show was equally as bad. And I will admit here, I have a soft spot here for Police Academy, the series, because it was airing on the WPHL 17. It was clearly a syndicated series. Was it accurate to the films? Well, in terms of absurdity, yeah, in a cartoon sense. So I have a soft spot for it there. I have no clue what in the world this is supposed to be. I have no clue what that's supposed to be, nor that. Black Star is a case I've heard of but never saw it. Pound Puppies, I'm definitely B tier. Again, this is a show that was clearly designed to sell toys, and like Popples, unlike Popples, I definitely remember the commercial because the commercial you had like the Pound Puppies, little toy stuffed dogs and stuff, and it made it look like these were dogs that looking for homes and stuff like that. So you know that the Sarah McLachlan commercial involving animals and stuff like that. Just imagine that, but with stuffed toys. That's what, in a way, that's what those Pound Puppy commercials like. They was like the ultimate freaking guilt trip. But the show in and of itself was clever in terms of looking to get individual dogs and stuff a home. And it's like they had the whole underground railroad type system. So it definitely have a soft spot for it there. Smurfs, that's definitely A tier. Funny enough, I associated Smurfs airing on the USA Network as part of its Cartoon Network, Cartoon Express, and I also associated it with Nickelodeon. Maybe it was airing on one first and then the other in terms of it, but either which way, the Gargamel certainly was a you just hated Gargamel outright. But you know what's funny? And I had this conversation with my mom a couple weeks ago as it relates to the Smurfs. Like she couldn't understand why Gargamel was such a big focus of the film. And it's because in the cartoon he wasn't really a driving force. They could get away with the slice of life plots a lot more in the individual cartoon in the cartoons than they could with a movie. But I can't remember any. There's no specific episodes that stand out, but there's just various things and mental images that stand out of it. Like I think when Smurfette was introduced, because I don't think she was originally in the show. She was almost like was she created to cause tension among the Smurfs? Can't quite remember if that was the case. I might be confusing a couple plot lines from one thing to another, but I think there was some jealousy of some sort associated or surrounding Smurfette with the various male characters. A pup named Scooby Doo. I'm putting it S tier because for me, as a kid, it was the first likable version of Scooby Doo. I hate it, and I will admit it. I hate it like Scooby Doo, Where Are You, and the various other iterations of Scooby Doo that would air in syndication and so forth. But a pup named Scooby Doo, that was awesome. It was flashy. It had distinctive music. There was recurring jokes like the red herring joke. Uh, there was just so much about it. I thought the monsters were designs were quite clever. The chase sequences and so forth. Um, and while Daphne comes across a little bit more vain, there's like a lot of uh appreciation for Velma that like the appreciation for how smart and clever Velma is more originates in a pup named Scooby Doo for me than it does with any other series. Uh, what in the world is this? I want to say that's Captain Planet, but it's not, so I don't recognize it. Visionaries, heard of, never watched it. Mighty Orbots, heard of, never watched it. I'm not even going to pretend I know what that is. Denver the Last Dinosaur. I remember. I remember Denver the Last Dinosaur more from like 90, 91, 92, that time period. But airing on, I want to say TBS. Because TBS had some cartoons on it. Maybe it was a holdover or something. Remember it being all right. Nothing really stands out. More the theme song stands out, kind of like in the case of Silverhawks. Like it doesn't leave an impression of me of the actual show, but the theme song does. So it's like, okay, C tier. GI Joe, A tier. This is come on, GI Joe. The initial GI Joe series. Clearly a show designed to sell toys, and it sold a boatload of those toys. It did a great job of keeping individual plots fresh. Looking back, you kind of wish there was a little bit more of like a overarching plot, which kind of there was because they're all the two-parters and multi-part stories, but more of like the bigger story arc and things building to that inevitable conclusion. But since the show was being created for syndication originally to sell as a glorified commercial to sell toys, you kind of got what you got. They did try a lot with the overarching plots with other series later on, and they kind of fell flat. But like the initial GI Joe cartoon is like, come on, it's one of the greatest cartoons of the 1980s. Wuzzies. Oh, boy, here's the thing. I was like, we'll admit that we saw it, but it's going here. 'Cause I don't remember it being particularly good, and I couldn't tell you any more about it. Whatever this is, I've never even heard of. I don't even recognize that artwork. The California Raisins. This was airing. I think it was a CBS one. It was stop motion, and that's all I remember. I don't remember it being particularly good. I think it was airing on C. It was either an ABC. It was either a CBS or an NBC animated series. Granted, it's more like stop. It was stop motion. Was it Galaxy High School? Never even heard of it. He-Man, Masters of the Universe. Yeah, let's be honest here. Despite that, it is getting it gets B tier. And if I was ranking these shows individual tiers, that would be a whole other argument in and of itself. I mean, again, much more so than She-Ra, because He-Man, Masters of the Universe definitely designed to sell toys more than anything else. I mean, it's. I mean, I'll give it its respect with some real likable aspects about it, but again, I like She-Ra more. A Hanna-Barbera series that looks. I don't even know. I don't know what that is. Dungeons and Dragons. I heard of it, but I've never seen the actual show. Wait. Heathcliff. They got Heathcliff here twice. Okay, whatever. DuckTales. Woo. Yeah, that goes up here. S tier. Again, the Disney afternoon block doesn't exist without DuckTales, although there's another show we got to credit as well, and that's Gummy Bears. I think Gummy Bears came first before DuckTales. Matter of fact, Gummy Bears should be on this list, and if it was, it would be A tier. But DuckTales, that initial success and everything there, they're showing like, okay, they can repurpose the actual Disney characters to be syndicated characters. So there is that. The introduction of Gizmo Duck was a huge deal. Everything culminating in the big feature length movie. I mean, DuckTales was freaking huge for a strong period of time. Gen 1, My Little Pony, and Glow Friends. I remember watching both of these shows, and because these two shows were part of the same block, I don't even have to think about this. My Little Pony Gen 1, that is B tier. Glow Friends, that is C tier. And here's the funny fact: I had one of the Glow Friends, the Glowworm toy, stuff toy. Granted, stuff nothing. It had the battery in that thing was like a freaking brick. But I have one of those though, so that goes there. The My Little Pony Gen 1 it is so far away when you compare to what the Friendship and Magic series was, and I haven't seen like the new series at all. But when you look at what, particularly in terms of animation style and everything of that sort, again, it was very distinct, very bright, colorful. It definitely left an impression. Designed as a way to market toys, it did its job, and I'm definitely gonna put a B tier. Glowworm, kind of like Glow Friends, kind of like the same vein there. Another Hasbro show. Matter of fact, we got the Hasbro shows here. We got Gem and GI Joe both A, My Little Pony B, Glow Friends C. So, wait, was Gem Hasbro? I can't remember now. I may be being confused. I associate Gem and the Holograms with Hasbro, but any which way. But Glow Friends, again, I remember it being there because those two shows that were airing back to back. Transformers. Speaking of, that goes there. Again, another show designed to sell toys, but its plot and themes and a lot of running gags like involving Starscream and so forth. Just puts it there. It's like one of the greatest shows of all time. Heard of, but I think I may have seen an episode of this. But I can't remember. I don't even remember the title. It's just like I know the visual of it, but I just can't place it. It's falling in a weird category there. Chippendales Rescue Rangers. That is distinctively A tier for me. Wasn't as good. Chippendales Rescue Rangers not as good as DuckTales, but it falls into that nice little. But it's again overall was a great show. It repurposed to a couple of legacy characters within Disney. In this case, Chip and Dale, who I think they debuted as antagonists of sorts or protagonists against Donald Duck. Matter of fact, some of their greatest shorts were against Donald Duck. Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, like introduced what the dangers of being in a cult. Fat Cat was a nice little recurring villain. You had that weird little scientist dude. Matter of fact, I also had the computer game as a kid. I mean, Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, it was huge. So it gets its stuff there. Brave Star. It goes here. I remember seeing it. It just doesn't leave an impression on me. Matter of fact, isn't it the same here? See, I kind of wish these things were more labeled in terms of the actual titles. But I remember Brave Star is like, okay, it's a more of a sci-fi white western type show. It does not leave a distinct impression. It definitely falls into that Silverhawks Mask category. Okay, it existed. I remember seeing it. Doesn't stand out. Oh boy, for anybody who likes those shows in the C tier, it's like Paw Paws, that is B tier for me. There's again, I remember seeing it more so. I think it was airing. It may have aired on TBS, but I definitely remember seeing it on Nickelodeon. There nothing distinct stands out of it. I just remember it as just thinking about it. It's like these little Indian, little cub like bears being Native Americans. It just stands out. It brings a surreal image to my head. Because Paw Paws was paired with the Snorks in a block of shows. Like, because I think Paw Paws was airing first, Snorks was airing second, and I remember Snorks a lot more because Snorks was awesome. I don't know what this is. Slimer. Oh boy, definitely D tier. It's like, wait, how Slimer? For those who don't know, was a spin-off of the Real Ghostbusters. Matter of fact, they got the block of the Slimer and the Real Ghostbusters name comes from the fact that you had a block of because the Real Ghostbusters got an hour-long block, and one block was the Real Ghostbusters proper, and then you had another block that aired to cartoons that basically were based around Slimer, and they were awful, and it looked bad. It just it was just bad. It was like awful. Pole Position I heard of but did not actually watch it. Sectaris never even heard of. Not even gonna pretend here. I am Not even going to pretend to know what that is. Beverly Hill Teens. Nope. Voltron. C tier. It aired on. It was when I saw it. It was airing on Nickelodeon, and it was. I found it to be incredibly boring for what it was. It was a space opera. You had to see. You had to watch almost every episode to actually follow what was going on, and it was just a very slow, very boring show. I mean, out of respect for its legacy, I'm putting it C tier, but for me, it could easily be D. The New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, that is going right up here to A tier. A lot of what I associate with the personalities and traits of the Winnie the Pooh characters comes more so from the New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh than it does like the films that came out like decades before it. Matter of fact, I think around the same time this show was airing on ABC, there was also like the live action people in mascot like suits of like a Winnie the Pooh circus or something or other that was airing on the Disney Channel. There's something of that sort. That's what I'm at least thinking of there. The Get Along game. All I heard of it, but did not see it, and I think Garfield and Friends made fun of it. Because that's where there were these bears with Garfield and Friends that would come in. They were singing those songs like they always get along. And I think it was kind of like making fun of the Get Along gang. But I'm like, I heard of this show, but I've never seen it. Teen Wolf. Oh, I remember this show, and it was awful. They couldn't cancel it fast enough. Like, I was like, most people think of like the Back to the Future animated series that was the show based on the Michael J. Fox films. No, Teen Wolf came before it, and it was bad. It was like I remember it was like, okay, I don't watch this. Oh, Gummy Bears is on this list, and guess what? It is going A tier 2. Because again, the Disney Afternoon was built on in order. Like the initial Disney Afternoon, because the one that I definitely remember was the one from like the early mid '90s. That was Darkwing Duck, Goof Troop, Gargoyles, and there was one more, not Mighty Ducks, but there was something else there. But Gummy Bears came first, then DuckTales, then Chip 'n Dale's Rescue Rangers. Like the proof of concept of the Disney Afternoon was built on these three, on Gummy Bears, DuckTales, and Chip 'n Dale. That goes without question. And Gummy Bears, hey, they're bouncing here and there and everywhere. You had the incredible voice talent that was on that show. How good it looked. How not again, it was a great little slice of life show to a large regard. But you also had the episodes where there was actual adventure and there was some action. So, again, put my glasses on here to try to determine what the hell this is. Spyro Zone, never heard of it. Tom and Jerry, will based more on its legacy and history. We're going to throw it there. Because again, it was just a package of their shorts, which I think were more of the earlier shorts, not so much the later ones. Because the rights to Tom and Jerry kind of got moved around a bit. Because you had there was somewhat MGM ones, I want to say. Then Hanna Barbera did a bunch. So Bionic 6, heard of, never watched it. Moon Dreamers? Never even heard of it. And Dragon's Lair, wait, was there an animated series on Dragon's Lair? Because I remember it more for for the actual game. Uh, so we'll just put it there. It's a cop out there because I know of the game, of the arcade game. As a matter of fact, I played the PC remaster. But in terms of there being an animated series, I'm not sure. So there you go. There's my distinctive tier lists. As you see me go through them one by one. Shows I didn't recognize, shows that I heard of but never seen. With Dragon Lair is kind of being a weird thing here. Heathcliff being listed here twice. And again, I didn't. But that kind of is what it is there. But there's probably some dispute on where I would put some of these shows. But you can't really argue with me on the S and A tiers. I mean, that's pretty solid. You can probably argue me with what's in the B tier because I know a lot of folks will put them in like a C or D tier in a lot of cases, but yeah, that's kind of is what it is there. Anyway, this was an exercise and of sorts. But if you actually made it here to the very end of this, thanks for watching. Seeing where I place your favorite shows or wondering what was where. Or if you recognize any of the shows that I did not, and I made it, zoomed it in as much as I can. On that, like it was 160% in terms of like the zoom in on that, and I still couldn't tell what some stuff was. Anyway, I would say like, comment, subscribe, and to say comment more than anything else. Anyway, we'll see you, of course, nightly over on my Twitch channel, where we do all sorts of nightly games and shenanigans. And we'll see you next week here on YouTube, depending on what I decide to come up with as a topic. So till next time, folks, tighten your friendship bracelets, stay safe, and we'll see you later.